Welcome to the Michael Ouzas podcast. Welcome to the Michael Ouzas podcast, episode number 1. The name is still a bit in progress, but figured it was just time to get started. It's something I've wanted to do for a long time. The goal of this podcast is to talk to athletes, coaches, other realtors, discuss their journeys, discuss their business, what's been happening in the Greater Toronto Area real estate market, and kind of everything in between. I'm also open to suggestions on any kind of guests that you'd like me to reach out to hopefully have on the show. The pillars for this podcast were based on 3 different things. So every Monday, I'd love to put out a Mike's Market Minute and talk about what I've been seeing on the ground level, talk about things that are happening in the market in real time. I'd love to do a live Q&A every week. We'll probably put that on Wednesdays, and ideally 2 guests per month for interviews. Interviews, I think, is where I'd really like this thing to go, but as everything keeps building, I'm going to start with everything else and then hopefully over time move it into interviews along the way. For this episode, I thought I'd introduce myself and talk about my journey from professional hockey into real estate. So I started playing AAA hockey in Hamilton, Ontario, where I'm from. I did the OHL draft thing, and before playing in the OHL, I actually played a year over in Finland. So I went over there when I was just turned 16 years old. It was pretty funny when I was there, and people were on cell phones, but I remember being back here, and in that time in high school, like nobody had cell phones. So totally different time. My parents used to have to call at a certain time on a certain day, and if we talked for like 30 minutes, I think it would cost them like $50 or something. So totally different time. So I lived in Finland for a year, did high school there, then moved back home and played 4 years in the OHL. After the OHL, went on to the University of New Brunswick, where I graduated with a degree in kinesiology and then went to pro from there. So I did my 3 years in the minors here, and one thing when you are playing in the minors, you kind of feel like there might be a point where you've given it your all. Obviously, the goal is to try and make the NHL. For me, it's not something that happened, and I decided to make the jump to Europe, and that's where I played for 10 years. I started in Croatia. I did 2 years in Zagreb. It was pretty amazing to play there. Full barn, 8,000 people a night. Fans were nuts. It was amazing, like the best atmosphere. And then went over to Linz, Austria, where I spent 6 years. And any player will tell you, I'm sure, that if you play for 6 years in one city, it becomes home for you. And fans there were also amazing. We'd get about 5,000 a game, and it was pretty special atmosphere, super loud every night. And if you ever have a chance to go to Austria, you know that Linz is a gorgeous city. It's right between Salzburg and Vienna, so super lucky to have spent 6 years, a really good portion of my adult life there, which was pretty great. And then my last 2 years, I played in Székesfehérvár, Hungary, which is about 30 minutes outside of Budapest. So definitely spent a lot of time in Budapest, which is a super undercover city, by the way. I would say it's probably like number 20, 30 on people's list, way behind things like Spain, Italy, whatever. But it shouldn't be. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous city. I always compare it to be a mix between Prague and Vienna, which are also 2 gorgeous towns to check out as well. So when I was going to that second year in Hungary, everyone knows what was going on in 2020 at that time. And actually, the real estate course went online during that period of time, which was great for me. It was a great benefit for me because then I could actually start the course when I was riding the bus for 10 hours, and I could do these courses and read these modules as the season was going along, which is what I did. So I started the course, and I knew that once I started, I had 2 years to finish. So I was 35 at the time. I knew that I was getting into the end of my career. I was pretty ready. I mean, I feel like once you've done it for so long, and every time you leave home you got to pack your whole property up and store it all somewhere, then you move home with mom and dad for a week or 2 while the tenants are moving out, and you move back into your place, and 3 months later you do it all over again for 9 months. And I was kind of getting sick of that. I knew that the writing was on the wall for me, and at that point at 35 I also kind of knew I was about 1 injury away from just being done. And yeah, it happened. I got a concussion. I've had a few before, and I knew that if I ever had one more, that was it for me. I do feel like there is a limit there for sure. That was it. I basically just called my parents, called my agent, and told everyone I was done, and that I basically just was finished. So once I had that injury, I knew it was time to move home, packed my bags, ended things with the team, and moved home and started my real estate journey. I was about a course away from getting the schooling completed anyway. So I was like, all right, well, literally just moved home and jumped in on the courses, on the learning, and finished off my license, jumped right into it, just kind of started building from there. So it was a really fun transition. I felt that real estate really gave me something to strive towards. The second I was done, it was like, okay, I'm done. Let's hit the ground running in real estate. It was also something that I feel a lot of the lessons from hockey translate over. As a player, you go through many ups and downs, you go through many highs and lows, you deal with momentum, either positively or negatively. I feel like all those lessons have really translated well in a really fun, fast-paced learning process, and I've really enjoyed it. And I try to learn from so many great realtors and other people who are also in real estate. So it's been really fun on that aspect. So real estate for me is not something I just kind of fell into. My father's actually a real estate broker in Hamilton, Ontario. Him and my mom have been doing real estate stuff for all I can remember. I used to move home in the summertime and help them paint and work on some of the properties that they were working on at the time. So it's something that I've always been involved in. They actually pushed me to get into the purchasing aspect of real estate pretty early. So back in 2014, I bought my first property, gorgeous condo. I still wish I had it to this day, but paid $290,000 for it at that time. I furnished it, I renovated it, and then I used to rent it when I would go play during the season and then move back and have a place to live. So definitely changed that transition of trying to find a rental every single summertime. And actually I started doing that over and over again and bought and or sold a property basically the last 7 or 8 years of my career. So it was really something that I took to and really started to learn the ins and outs of being a landlord, how to transact, how to find properties. And then as things started to open up on MLS where you could start to see, different price points and stuff like that, I really dove in online all the time. I was always looking and just felt like it was a really natural transition. It's really helped having my parents involved too. And anytime I ever have a question, there's the first person I reach out to is my dad. So it's been a really fun process so far. And with this podcast, the goal is to talk to other athletes, other coaches, realtors, and just hear everyone's journey and their process into where they are today, their highs and lows, and whatever they want to share. The goal is to help educate everybody and just talk about different things. And if you were an athlete and now into a different kind of business, talk about life and the transition from going from playing a sport every single day into a new profession. And it's definitely not easy. I'm not going to sit here and say that it was an easy transition. You basically have to revamp your entire identity, and kind of what everyone's always known you for is done now. So then now you're a real estate agent, for example, no longer a hockey player. It's totally different scenario. And when you're a hockey player, your reference is that for like literally your entire life. So that's it. The goal is to be super consistent with this and to provide episodes. I feel like I was already doing things like this on video anyway through YouTube and Instagram, and starting to dabble into TikTok and YouTube Shorts. But now that it's in audio format, I'm hoping to just deliver more content to anyone who's willing to listen or anyone who wants to learn. That's the goal of all of this. So I hope you enjoy it. Hope you tune in, and we'll see you next time.